Well, the National Broadband Network is a piece of we know, critical economic infrastructure, but it also provides, I think, for the social infrastructure that Australia needs for the 21st century. It's a future-proof fibre to the premises network, and I was really pleased to see part of Canberra, Gungahlin, as the next phase of the rollout for NBN. People there, my constituents, have been suffering with broadband black spots for many years because of the underinvestment of Telstra and the failure of the former Liberal government to get telecommunications policy right. So it's an area of public policy that I'm extremely proud of.
Well, we've been pretty clear that we think Labor's $43 billion NBN is an unwise investment. There's a real risk that it will turn out to be a white elephant, and we're very, very doubtful that a government which has wasted so much money on mismanaged programs like Pink Bats and building the education revolution can be trusted to execute a program of this scale. So we've been clear, if we're elected to government, we will be shutting down the NBN, but our shadow communications spokesman, Tony Smith, has made it clear that we'll be announcing our policy over coming weeks. Well, we'll be announcing our policy over coming weeks, so I won't be saying anything more about that today, other than to refer to what Tony Smith, our shadow communications spokesman, has said in the past. He has made it clear that we will be releasing a policy, and we've always talked about principles such as reliance on the private sector, but an appropriate role for government in areas of market failure.
We're still waiting to see what the opposition's policy on the NBN is. We know that they propose to scrap it, but we haven't actually seen a proposition for any alternative yet. The government's ploughing ahead with the NBN. We think that the legislation, the framework around the NBN should have been debated before Parliament got up. Because it's being rolled out, they're digging trenches and spending money with no framework of accountability. What we're proposing is that the NBN do go ahead, that it is built, that we have all of the information in the public domain around the costs and the business model and the business case for the NBN, and that it not be privatised and sold down at the end of the process. Part of what we're having to do here is fix the mess that was left by the privatisation of Telstra, so we don't want to go down that track again and repeat the mistakes of the past. We know that the private sector won't take broadband out to the really uneconomic parts of the country. If you want to do this kind of thing, if you want to get backhaul into the Pilbara, and if you want to get fibre into people's homes in the mining communities in the northwest of WA, for example, or regional communities, it's going to need to be a government build. Now, the cost-benefit analysis, I think, sure, they should do it, but I think the Coalition is overestimating how much that will actually tell us. It's very easy to estimate the costs. It's very difficult to estimate and monetise the benefits. You actually have to invent a whole lot of numbers to make the cost-benefit analysis. If it's that easy, they should simply do it, but I don't think it should be the final piece of evidence on which the whole case rests.
Well, Labor has recently announced that we're going to review the refused classification aspect. That does relate to our filter policy and means that there's many discussions yet to be had about the application of that policy. That has the effect of delaying the legislation, and I think will provide people who have a strong view about the filter policy another opportunity to express their view about the refused classification aspect of it. Look, there's no doubt it's controversial. I get a lot of representations from people both for and against the policy. I have a view that the key to making the internet safer is about empowering parents and carers. It's about education, awareness, and giving people the tools they need to protect themselves. And I certainly will continue to argue that and present those issues within my Labor Party caucus, as is my right.
Well, look, we're very sceptical of what Labor has been pursuing for some years. They haven't brought detailed legislation forward, so we haven't seen the details of what they propose, and we also note that they've now announced a review of the classification scheme. Now, that scheme has actually been in place for several years. They would have had plenty of time to do that in previous years, so that looks like a bit of a attempt to kick the issue into touch so that it's not around during the election. But look, we are sceptical of Labor's approach on this, but we need to see the details. It's Labor's policy. They've announced that they'll be bringing forward the details, so let's wait and see the details and see what they propose. But we are sceptical. Under the Howard government, we had a very effective program called Net Alert, in which parents could get standardised software available to them to assist them in operating a filter on their own PC. to protect them and their children, and sadly that's been cut by the present government, and now there's nothing in place to meet that need. We will wait and see what it is that Labor brings forward, because we haven't seen the detail, but the policy in this area does seem to be in something of a mess, we can say.
I think the Liberals are ducking and weaving. I think internally they're split. We've just got to take Paul at his word this morning that he's very sceptical. Some of the other Liberal backbenchers are also very sceptical, and they've been quite critical. But the fact is the opposition's led by Tony Abbott, who's very, very deeply conservative. Wouldn't surprise me at all when the government finally moves to legislate for mandatory net censorship, which is still their policy. I'm still very worried that the Liberals are going to vote for it.
Well, we've had a skills shortage in the area of ICT for years now, and Labor has made an investment, particularly in the maths and science area, of some $570 million going into the forward years as well. So that's a massive investment in trying to encourage students into the maths, science, technology and engineering fields, and I think that will help. But we really need to, I think, promote the trade, if you like, or the profession amongst women. The percentage of women studying ICT in higher education institutions is dropping. That's crazy. I mean, you only need to have a look around here at Google to see that women have a great role to play and are playing a very strong leadership role as well. Tech is a great profession to be in, and I would just hope that people can respond to the government incentives that have been put in place and encouragement that's been put in place, and consider higher level maths and science as they go forward with their tertiary education.
Our general principle is that we want to encourage economic activity, we want to encourage Australian success in every possible sector, including the IT sector, and that to us is the priority. So we look to the market generally to address skills shortages. If there are specific issues that come up, and then obviously we would look to those as they arose.
It's potentially the best kind of skills shortage. We do have to skill people up. I think in the short term there's going to be a crunch just because of the scale of the fibre rollout. I think physical numbers of people to actually put the infrastructure into the ground, that we might actually see a labour shortfall there. And in terms of the skills shortage, I don't know. I think we've got an incredibly vibrant and very exciting tech sector here in Australia. I would be interested to hear if that's what the industry is saying, but at this stage it doesn't seem like there's a major shortfall.